All right, today we're diving into one of the most successful, most controversial, and honestly, one of the most physically grueling independent films ever made. So, how does a movie that every single major studio in Hollywood flat out rejected go on to make history? I mean, seriously, how does that happen? Let's get into the absolutely unbelievable story behind Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ. For director Mel Gibson, this was never just another movie. As he put it himself, this film is about faith, hope, love, and forgiveness. This was something deeply, deeply personal for him. It was a project that came from a place of real crisis and a search for some kind of redemption. This all kicked off not with a fancy studio deal or some guaranteed blockbuster contract. Nope. It started as one man's massive spiritual and, well, financial gamble. So back in the late 90s, Mel Gibson was really going through it. He was at a personal low point, dealing with severe depression, a lot of emotional turmoil, and substance dependence. He saw making this film as, well, almost like a form of therapy. It was his way of taking all that turmoil and pouring it into his art, and a way to try and reconnect with the Catholic faith he felt he'd lost touch with. But here's the crazy part. Despite being one of the biggest movie stars on the planet, every single major Hollywood studio told him no. Flat out. Why? Well, they thought the graphic violence was too much, the subject was way too controversial, and this wild idea of his to shoot the whole thing in ancient languages, it was a complete non-starter for them. A massive, massive commercial risk. So what do you do when everyone says no? Well, if you're Mel Gibson, you make a monumental decision. You bet on yourself. He financed the entire $45 million budget. We're talking production and marketing. All of it came out of his own pocket. And about those ancient languages. This was non-negotiable for Gibson. To get what he called uncompromising truth, he insisted the dialogue had to be entirely in Aramaic, Latin, and Hebrew. This wasn't some gimmick, it was absolutely central to his vision. And this meant the entire cast had to go through intense coaching. For most of them, they were learning their lines phonetically, basically just memorizing sounds without even knowing what the words meant. Okay, so this commitment to realism, it didn't stop with the language, not by a long shot. For the lead actor, Jim Caviezel, this film became an almost unimaginable physical ordeal. We're talking about something that pushed him way beyond the normal limits of acting. And I am not exaggerating here. During the filming of the Sermon on the Mount scene, Jim Caviezel was literally struck by lightning. People on set said they saw smoke coming off his body. And get this, an assistant director was also struck on that same day for the second time during the shoot. Just unbelievable. Now, that scourging scene is famously brutal to watch, right? Well, the reality of filming it was even more intense. There was a miscalculation, and Caviezel was accidentally hit with real whips. Twice. One of those strikes left a massive 14-inch gash on his back. His scream of pain? That was completely real. And they kept it in the final cut of the film. And the injuries just kept coming. I mean, the list is insane. While he was carrying that 150-pound cross, he dislocated his shoulder. He spent hours nearly naked in the freezing cold, which led to hypothermia, which then turned into pneumonia and a lung infection. It was just a truly relentless physical beating. Even his daily routine was an absolute ordeal. Think about this. Every single morning started with an 8-hour session in the makeup chair to apply all the prosthetics and wounds. And that makeup was so fragile that he couldn't even sit down between takes. He had to lean against these special boards just to keep from ruining it. That is a level of commitment that most actors will never, ever experience. But, amidst all of this suffering and this brutal realism, something else was happening on that set in Italy. For a lot of the cast and crew, the line between making a movie and having a genuine spiritual experience, it started to get really, really blurry. The atmosphere on set was just that intense. The actor who played Barabbas, a guy named Pietro Cerubi, said that one powerful look from Caviezel while he was in character was enough to make him return to his Catholic faith. And then there's Luca Lionello, the actor who played Judas. He was a self-declared atheist who ended up converting to Christianity after the filming was over. Gibson's creative choices were really designed to get under your skin. Take Satan, for example. He cast an actress, Rosalinda Cilentano, to give the character this androgynous, otherworldly look. But then, he had her voice dubbed over by a male actor. The result was this deeply disorienting, non-human quality that was just chilling. And beyond all the spiritual stuff, a lot of people on set couldn't help but notice a series of really striking coincidences, all surrounding the man at the center of the film. Now, for a lot of people on set, this felt like way more than just a coincidence. The actor playing Jesus Christ, his name is Jim Caviezel. His initials are JC. And during the entire time he was filming, he was exactly 33 years old, the same age that's attributed to Jesus at the time of his death. So when this movie was finally released, it exploded. It ignited this global firestorm. On one hand, you had widespread condemnation, and on the other, you had record-breaking, absolutely unprecedented success. Remember that massive gamble? Well, it paid off, big time. The movie that Hollywood didn't want to touch became a global phenomenon. On that $45 million budget he funded himself, it went on to gross over $622 million worldwide. It became the highest-grossing R-rated film in U.S. history at that time. I mean, think about that. An R-rated, subtitled religious movie doing those kinds of numbers? That's just unheard of. But its unflinching brutality sparked a massive global debate. Some critics went so far as to label it torture porn, just condemning the violence as being way too excessive and exploitative. The imagery was so intense that there were reports from all over of people literally fainting in the movie theaters. And here's where it gets even more fascinating. While some people were fainting from the distress, other viewers were reporting the complete opposite experience. There were all these claims of miraculous physical healings happening right there in the theaters. People saying their hearing came back, or that they suddenly found relief from chronic pain, all while watching the movie. And now, more than 2 decades after that incredibly controversial debut, it looks like the story isn't over. That's right, Mel Gibson has confirmed that a sequel called The Resurrection is in the works. It's going to explore the 3 days between the crucifixion and resurrection. And yes, Jim Caviezel is confirmed to return to the role. So it just begs the question, right? What was it about this film that made it connect so powerfully with millions of people? Was it the faith? Was it the brutality? Or was it something else entirely? And what on earth will this next chapter reveal?